Everyone, so my name is Matt Lopez, just to introduce myself. So I am the owner of the Daily Trade with John here. He's another trader in the Daily Trade. So we're just going to go over a few plays here for the week. My current watch list that I'll go over in this video are going to be AMD, YETI, C for Citigroup, DOCU, Zoom, and Spot. John?
Yes, so I also have Watchlist ready. We have some similar names on there. Some of the ones that I like, my favorite setups going into this week. I have UPS, I have AMD, and FSLY, which are two that I had mentioned earlier in the chat last week. JP Morgan, DocuSign, and Roku.
Yeah, so for the first one I actually want to go over is our YETI play that I've been mentioning a lot to you guys, and it was actually really big for me to actually find this, and I was like, okay, this is interesting because of how it's actually holding up. And so this is the hourly, but I'm actually trying to pay attention to the daily here. So as you can see, the daily's been holding up a nice trend. Love my colorful lines here. So we're looking at it actually, so it broke to the 55 level, right? But what was interesting is that last week, if you didn't know and see already, is that there was the unusual volume and open interest in the $52 calls that I saw. So the volume on that on Friday trading was 2.1K, right? And then the open interest still holding is 7.5K. That was really interesting to see that everything else on the options chain was pretty low, and it was just really weird to me. I ended up having to go search, try and find around. So I kind of looked into last week and how it looked, and on pretty much every dip that it did have last week, you were able to see the volume pick up and the buying of those contracts pick up as well for the September 4th $52 calls. And so as well, I went and tried to look on Flow Algo, and I looked on Cheddar Flow, and Cheddar Flow was the only one that picked it up in the option sweeps. They were able to pick up the September 4th $52 calls, and that's where I was able to find, all right, who's actually buying these contracts. And so that's what was interesting to me, and finding out that, so seeing that they bought them on Thursday, a lot of these calls made it really interesting going into next week, and with that possible breakout soon, as last one looked like a fake out for many people that probably got in. So this one will be a probably continuation of what this should have been. John, do you want to skip over to your next play?
Yeah, sure. Let me just share my screen real quick. Share my screen with you guys.
All right, go ahead. You can go ahead and try it.
All right.
Oh, that's John. I see John.
That's me. What's going on, guys? All right, here we go. So the first one that I actually wanted to go over, this is honestly one of my favorite ones going into next week, just because I think this is something that we could start to see some continuation with going into next week. We saw UPS report earnings, what was it, 2 weeks ago? And their earnings report was just gorgeous. And we're going to see FedEx report, I believe it's on the 13th. In UPS's earnings report, we saw a great bottom line improvement. The bottom line improved by 8-9%. We're probably going to see a continuation in a large increase in volume for deliveries with packages. Especially in the COVID environment, I don't see any reason that people are not going to just continue ordering things online. And I think that there's still plenty of upside to go on UPS and FedEx especially, but I like the pattern that we see. We saw this big move up, and we're seeing some sideways consolidation. It's forming a nice bull flag right here. So I think tomorrow and the rest of the week, the level to watch, 162.70. I think realistically we'll probably start to break that tomorrow. And if we do, I think we can start to see an even bigger move up, 164.37, 166. And if we start to see a move even higher on that, I think we can go 170 plus on them. But for tomorrow, I would keep an eye on this 162.70 level, which was the high off that earnings breakout. So I would definitely keep an eye on this one. It's just kind of a cheaper way to play FedEx. You could also play the FedEx run up too, but the premiums are a little bit higher on that. So UPS is kind of a way to play FedEx earnings without having to pay that big premium on it. Just one more before I send it back to Matt, because I know we both were in agreement on this one. We kind of like the Facebook setup going into tomorrow and the rest of the week too.
Oh yeah.
There was news that came out this weekend about ByteDance, which is the sole owner of TikTok. And China came out with new export control rules that essentially are going to cover a variety of technologies that they deem to be sensitive. So in order for ByteDance to sell TikTok to an American company, they're going to need to get a license and a government approval to do so. So this news is extremely bullish for Facebook, just because it makes TikTok a lot more difficult to sell to an American company. So this will be beneficial to Facebook's Reels that they came out with, right? So last week we saw this big move up, right? Once we broke through this 283 level, it was like, a straight run to 300. And then after we got to 300, we started to pull back a little bit. But I like the fact that this is forming a nice falling wedge pattern. And if we throw in this weekly VWAP, it looks like we pulled back right around to it, right? And we're starting to find support around there. And this big volume bar, I'm liking the increase in volume here once we're breaking out of this downtrend. So I would say watch this 295.73 level going into tomorrow. I think if we can get through that, we can run to 300. And then if we get through 300, I think it could be a straight ride up to 311, which would be the next pivot point above the previous high that we had. So this is one of my favorite setups going into next week. I would keep an eye on that 295 level. You might be able to catch a move pretty quickly. That would be for me personally. I would probably make a first entry on a break above 295.73 with volume. If we see it hold again and break through 300, that would probably be my second entry. And then, a price target around 311. But keep an eye out. If you do decide to play this one, I would keep an eye out for any news on the China and TikTok deal going on right now. We saw the news about China cracking down on its regulations, but we could always see news about a new company being interested in it, or even something about how they might be able to get the license pretty easily. So just something to keep an eye on. But like I said, watch that 295 level. I think that's the key level to break in.
All right, and then I'll change it back over here. I'll go ahead and share my screen back again. Thank you, John. And then just to reiterate on what John was saying, I was kind of looking at it right when he told me to, just before the meeting, because I didn't even notice. I mean, I was looking at it, but I didn't really see anything until he noticed to pop out with the hourly. And if you're already in the chat, you already know that, there's a lot of stuff that's been happening with a lot of these short squeezes and the moves that are coming in. You're able to find that, we get these plays, and once they pop over in the hourly, right, John had that falling wedge and it was perfect. And then we're also able to see that, we can get a short squeeze here, possibly back to that 300 level. And always the whole numbers are the ones that are very psychological to people and traders in general. So if we're looking at that, that's going to be huge for this week to look out for. As well as, just like John said, that news on TikTok. And then a continuation and, just kind of reiterate on the AMD play that we had. So if we're looking at AMD going into the rest of the month, we're going to be seeing that, it's going to be playing out. What am I doing? This is right here. So if we're looking at it, we're still going to see that breakout here soon. So getting into those September 18th $90 calls, that's what I'm going to be doing. I didn't get in on Friday. I was waiting for it to just I was actually paying attention to Ulta because we were in those Ulta earnings plays. I was paying attention to Apple and Tesla as well, just because of how they had the splits after hours. So AMD still going to be getting in those $90 calls, and just seeing how that rides out for the rest of the month as we do start this month, and seeing the weekly, seeing how this might play out and break out into this week. So that's a huge one to watch out for as well. So there's a lot of good breakouts this starting off this month of September, even though tomorrow's August 31st, September is going to be really nice riding into it. And then I can dive right in, or John, do you want to pick up the next play?
You know what? I can pick up the next play. I'll read some of my other favorites that I have.
All right, go ahead, sir.
And don't forget, guys, starting tomorrow, we have the brand new monthly candles too. Or not tomorrow, starting Tuesday, we have brand new monthly candles. So something else to keep in mind for some of the monthly candles we have now. We may look to finish strong on some of them. But so one I really wanted to talk about, I mentioned UPS before and Facebook, but I think one that we might see some serious continuation on is Roku. And I had put this in our chat, I think last week, that we've kind of been in this nice ascending channel right here. And it's been pretty clean. You know, the price action has been pretty clean and healthy. And we started consolidating right around this 150 area right here. And it held up pretty well. You can kind of tell that it was basing after this big run that it had all the way from that breakout of 113. It was consolidating nicely. And then once we saw a break of this monthly VWAP up here, if I break down to a smaller time frame, once we saw a break of this monthly VWAP, right, it was that gap and go scenario. We gapped above that 151 area. And then from this point on, now we're in full breakout mode. So we're right in the middle of this channel.
And actually, John, pull up the weekly candle on there. You're going to see a huge bullish engulfing on there.
Yeah, look at that. Engulfed that entire consolidation area from the past
That's a nice
few weeks
channel
too.
right there too.
That is. And I think, I put a price target up here around 215, but I think this is a name that could probably continue to run for the rest of the year just because again, their previous earnings report was, a lot better than people had anticipated with the amount of users that they're bringing to their base and the amount of people that they have on their platform. Even with a struggling ad market, they're still seeing a lot of success. So,
I think another one that would be nice to be correlating with it would be PTON, right?
Was Peloton as well. Yeah.
Peloton, yeah.
So something else I wanted to mention here, there was a lot of flow into the 180s. There's a lot of open interest and a lot of volume going into these 180 calls for this week, which kind of just shows you the sentiment that we have on Roku. So I drew some levels for you guys too to kind of keep an eye on going into this week. So the first one I wanted to mention was this 176 level that we got to earlier this week. This is one of the key pivot levels here too that we kind of got up there and sold off a little bit. So I think if we can break Friday's high, which is 177.54, get over this and hold over this 176 level, I think you can set up a run to 190. This volume that we saw here on Friday is pretty significant, which just kind of shows you that Roku did probably in fact form a little bit of a base, and I think we're setting up a move to 200. So I would watch that 176 level. Make sure we hold over that, and then I think we can catch a move to 190, and then eventually start to move towards the top of that channel. So this is another good one to keep an eye on. Watch those 180 calls. They I think if we can start to see some more volume go into those too. Like I said, we saw some sweeps for the 180 calls this past week, and I think this could be another one that pays pretty well. I don't think we saw the end of this move. But with Matt said, let's go over Peloton, actually, because I have this on my list as well. Peloton's another one, too, that we're starting to see some growing volume here. We saw this big move up, and we saw consolidation, and then, we broke above these all-time highs, and we saw it on good volume. So I don't know if, Matt, do you want to talk about Peloton a little bit?
I've never played it. You might have more experience, but if I'm just looking at it right now, I kind of see a bull flag there at the top.
I was just going to mention that same exact thing. I'm saying I think we're flagging up right here. I don't play Peloton too often.
I've never played it, honestly.
But that's a pretty good setup. I think if we could break the previous highs, 77, this looks pretty poised for a run to 80 plus. So this could be another good one. All right, but anyway, I was going to talk about one that I had continuously put in the chat, one that I have currently have an open position on. This is one that's pretty prone to news, and given what I talked about before with the news about ByteDance, which is the owner of TikTok. So Fastly is directly related to that because Fastly gets about 12% of its revenue from TikTok. So any news that we hear from TikTok and, about companies buying it out or about companies about, TikTok, maybe it's not getting bought, maybe it is. That's why we saw this big drop here, this 30% drop, because we got news that Microsoft wasn't going to be able to buy TikTok. Like, people didn't think it was going to be possible. And then Trump came out and said that he's going to give some sort of incentives for companies for Microsoft if they do. And, they might take a little cut of it and keep it for the government. So that's why we're starting to see a little bit of recovery here. But from a technical standpoint, where it opens up tomorrow is anybody's guess. All we can do is kind of have our level set and go off of that. But from a technical standpoint right here on the hourly chart, we still have this big gap to fill, right? Up to 107. This gap is still open. And 99 is that breakout level.
It's definitely like another short right there, short squeeze, just like Facebook at the top. It looks nice.
You see this little, Nike swoosh pattern going on right here, right? Start to see it bottom out and, basing around 94.
It looks like a wedge too there at the bottom.
Yeah, it does. And on top of that, you have this nice cup and handle pattern too.
Yeah, right? I'm seeing that now.
So I think if we can hold above 94, like I said, we don't really know where it's going to open up tomorrow. That news might have an effect on it. But I think if we can hold above this 94 level, I think it'll eventually push through 99, and then it should fill that gap up to 107.57. All it takes is just one headline. One bit of good news about TikTok is all this thing needs to push it. But this is one that I currently do have an open position on. I have the 100 call for this week. I think we're currently down about $10 on it, but this could be a play that pays out if we can hold this 94 level base over here. And another thing on top of that too, yesterday was a nice good consolidation day. You see this inside candle here too. So I would just be wary, it's not impossible to see another inside candle too. And if that's the case, then I think, one more consolidation day and then a move through 99, and I think it's right to 107. So definitely have your alert set for the 99 level. And I know Matt had mentioned Spotify in our chat as well as one to keep an eye out on too. And me personally, when I trade, I like to look for these rounded bottoms. I think these rounded bottoms are a sign of good consolidation, but at the same time, it's almost a demand zone, right? You start to see price kind of respect certain levels and then base out and eventually push for a move higher. But this is one to keep an eye out on too. We see this downtrend right here that it almost, we had a little bit of a false breakout. So I would try to keep an eye out on this 284 level. And I think if we can break through this 284 level and close above it, I think 300 is the next level to look forward to. You might be able to catch a 16-point move there. So this is another cool one to keep an eye out on. And this is another case of, how important that monthly VWAP is. I never used to use VWAPs when I was trading until I started trading with Matt. And then he's the one that kind of pointed it out to me. But they carry a lot of significance because the same way that we see price action just kind of stop. Oops, let me fix that a little bit. We see price action kind of stop right around this monthly VWAP, right? It respects it. And then eventually, once it breaks above, retests, and then it's time to go. We saw the same, not the same, but very similar price action with Facebook, right? Over here with this monthly VWAP where we saw, this consolidation sideways movement right here. And then as soon as we broke above it, then it was off to the races. So I think this could be, a similar example of, once we break past this monthly VWAP, this is when we're going to start running. So for this week, for Spotify, I would keep an eye on that 284.62 level. I think if we can break above that, you might be able to catch that 16-point move back up to all-time highs. Matt, I'm just going to go over two more, and then I'll pass it back to you.
No problem.
These two will be pretty quick. The two I wanted to go over DocuSign.
I'm taking notes on yours.
So DocuSign would be an earnings play. Now that we're starting to move past those areas of uncertainty with COVID and we're starting to get a little bit more normalized earnings, I think we can feel a little bit more comfortable with playing some earnings. Like, Matt played Ulta the other day and had a banger that, ended up becoming like 30 points in the money. But so DocuSign is one that I'm looking at. I'm looking at the 250 calls. There's about a 13% move priced in, which is give or take about $27 or $28 for earnings, which would put this right around like what, 242 ish.
I
So the
was looking at
250.
the October 16th $300 calls, looking at seeing how that might play out, and just giving yourself time, and as well as keeping it out of the money just a little bit. That's what I was looking at, but I don't know. I don't know if I should yet.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a bad idea at all. I think you can kind of avoid the theta and IV crush by buying a little bit further out. Not a bad idea at all. I think personally, this is one that still has plenty of room to move up. Even after this big move, DocuSign is only going to get stronger from here on out. This is a company that has a big role in telemedicine and being able to keep everything online and not have anything
Yeah,
be.
I want to see how their forward guidance goes as well for the previous quarter, just because of how everything planned out with the summer, and I mean, not only the previous quarter, and seeing how everyone was basically online as well, and it was like a full quarter that they're able to show. All right, we had more businesses showing up online and all that stuff. So that's kind of interesting to see how they'll talk about that in their their earnings report.
Yeah, definitely gonna be one to watch out about. It's on Tuesday, so if anybody is wants to have a nice lotto play into earnings, the 250s are not too bad. There's some decent open interest in them too. Um, but watch out, there is a 27-point move priced in, so you might be able to hit a home run on this one, but it's definitely one to watch out. I know me personally, I own equity in DocuSign just because, like we said before, I think this is a company that's here to stay. In this new age that we live in, this is a company that's going to continue to thrive. But anyway, so the other one that I wanted to talk about was J.P. Morgan.
Oh
Um,
yeah, banks.
oh yeah, if we start to see rotation back into financials, which is entirely possible, this is one that might be a ripper. We see a nice pattern. It's starting to get a little bit tight. But the level that I would like to see it break through is this 103.51 level. I think that's going to be the breakout level here. I would like to see this break through with volume. Let's see the monthlies. Yeah, so this is another one. We keep saying the monthly VWAP has a lot of importance, right? And we see it break through with volume on this pretty bullish candle, nice bullish engulfing candle, and then after breaking through it again, we're starting to see a little bit of a flag pattern here too. So I would like to see some continuation into this week, and if we can start to see some rotation out of tech into financials, I think this could be one that might lead the way. Comparatively speaking, I think J.P. Morgan and Bank of America have been two of the stronger financial stocks, and they both have pretty similar setups. If we look at Bank of America too, again, it has this this wedge pattern that it's forming here too, where it's starting to get tight. So I would try to keep an eye on them, see if we can see a rotation back into financials. But the 103 calls, we saw some flow into them this past week on the sweep signals. I would keep an eye on these two, Bank of America and J.P. Morgan, and then also keep an eye on XLF and see if we could see some rotation go back into them. As far as the charts that I have, I know Matt had already covered AMD, but these are the ones that I'm looking at for this week. My favorites, I think I mentioned before, Facebook, UPS, and Roku. I think these three are going to be some pretty successful ones if we could see those price levels start to break. But yeah, so I'll pass it back over to you, Matt. I don't know if you wanna add to some of the ones that you mentioned.
Yes, sir. Let me go ahead and pull it up. All right, so DOCU. So I mean, just to reiterate a little bit on DOCU, and then I'll go over to financials as well. Because me and John, we have a lot of stuff in common that we trade. We do have different analysis, and we do end up correlating a lot. So it's kind of funny how we end up, picking almost the same plays, and yet different analysis. Yet it always comes out almost the same way. So DOCU is looking at that and going into earnings, seeing how, the call volume and seeing how, earnings might play out with how much of a banger they might have been in the past couple months, just with, COVID, the pandemic, and actually seeing a full quarter of them, seeing the full potential of COVID and how it affects their business and maximizes their profits as well. So that was just something I wanted to talk about on DocuSign. One thing I was looking at financials earlier today was actually seeing a box, seeing how this squeeze might be coming in here for financials. I saw this on Citigroup, just for Citigroup in general. I didn't really see it in anything else at this moment, although financials will, follow as well. But if you look at Citigroup, so the purple is a monthly VWAP, and your yellow is going to be your yearly VWAP. So that's very strong, and we're looking at it. Let me make this the decade as well. I know there was something I was looking at that was very strong. It was the century, I believe. Yep. So VWAPs play a lot off, if you're looking at them, VWAPs play a lot off algo-based levels. They're going to be playing off a lot of, this is where a lot of banks will be getting in. It's the huge volume-based levels that you want to be getting in, because that's where obviously the volume comes in. You're able to get in, and options is based off volume. So pretty much what I'm looking at is these VWAPs and how it's just holding along the lines of the VWAP. It may not be this week, it may not be the next week, it may just be in the future, but this is a huge one. I actually had to point out just because of seeing how, if we do get a rotation, like John was saying, we are going to end up seeing this push higher and getting a lot higher squeeze back to 62. And it'll be fast, and you won't even notice it, just like how gold and silver ran so fast, you barely noticed it until it was at the top. So we're just going to see how this plays out. And as well, if I look on the weekly as well, shows it squeezing very hard in this very consolidated area, in just this little box that I kind of drew out just to kind of show you how it looks like. But if we do see on last week, you could see a nice bullish engulfing on this candle, and possibly a C, maybe in the next couple of weeks a little bit higher. So I might go a little bit longer on these calls. I know I'm going to be going long on my Bank of America calls for 2022 calls in the money. That's huge for me. I love Bank of America, Delta Airlines. Those are the huge ones I love to go long on. So, I mean, you could see that in Citigroup. You could see that in Bank of America, sort of. You could see how we're, getting closer to ripping above these levels. Financials is just getting tighter and tighter, ready to rip higher, right? JPM as well. John mentioned it. So we have that. This is because I keep changing it. It's the yearly. This is the yearly VWAP. It's holding that strong. So these are all just different ones that, financials are just ready to get higher.
Also, just not to interrupt you, Matt, but if you want to go back to Citigroup real quick, that chart you had up before, if you go to the daily, chart, you can kind of notice, right, as we see this box range starting to form, you could start to see a pattern with volume, right? As where we have volume at the peak, right where it touched 62.59 there, you can start to see volume starting to dry up a little bit, right? A decreasing volume pattern, which is a good sign to say as we see price start to consolidate more. So if we can see this week price start to break out of that box range, and on top of that start to see an increase in volume, that's how you're going to know that there's a money rotation starting to flow back into financials, and that would be a very bullish sign. So that's also something to keep an eye on. Paying attention to the volume, paying attention to how price action acts.
This MACD too. The MACD is just holding up.
Yeah, could potentially see a bullish cross on there too. Just adding to the thesis.
Yeah, and we're very neutral on the RSI, so it's just waiting for a nice volume breakout there. One last, actually, no, you already covered it. You got spot, DOCU, you already went over Zoom, right? So what I was calling them is the three musketeers, because if you look at DocuSign, Zoom, Spotify, all three of them are basically headed for 300. I mean, just look at them. So Zoom is already at 300. It's, you know, a few cents away. It already topped 300. Spotify is about to be headed to 300 soon. DocuSign, you know, these are some well-known companies that everyone's been playing for the past year. Last year, they weren't so well-known. You know, they were still at the bottom of the peaks, and a lot of people were, you know, hating on them because they weren't, you know, very profitable at that time. And now they're just going outrageous with COVID. So they're all about to hit 300 most likely this year. It's going to be interesting to see how everything in the tech world, you know, ends up in the end of the year, as well as another hidden one that nobody has really played since, you know, for a while, is really Zscaler. And I was kind of looking at Zscaler as well. But yeah, so Zscaler was just holding up and it started drying up and everything. So I was going to look at that, but there's nothing really in my understanding that I can find to play this, like any of DOCU, Zoom, or Spot. So Zscaler was just another one that I wanted to just point out that it was one of the techs that everyone has been playing this year as well.
The spreads on Zscaler are kind of ugly too. So
Yeah.
Zscaler a lot better to just play equity with.
Yeah. And then I know somebody had a question about the Apple split. So let's see. Baby Yoda said, "Hey Matt, do you know, or do you think of Apple? What do you think of Apple on Monday? I have October 505 calls." So if you know that Apple has their split and it ended on Friday, we're going to be splitting back to 125, right? So we're going to see the price change and everything. It's already showed on a couple of brokerages. But on Monday, I mean, if you're looking at that, right, the 505 calls, you're very close to in the money, and you'll be very close when it splits, because those contracts are going to split into 4 ways, right? So you're going to have those. And the October 505, if you're holding them long, right, which is a month and a half out, I guess, you're going to be, you'll be fine. You can hold those. It's not like you'll really be playing with, you know, far out of the money. At least you don't have like $600 calls, right? That's way out of the money. 505 is a nice one because you're only $5 out of the money, and now you'll be maybe 126, 127 calls when they split. So it'll be interesting to see how that is, but those are good to hold if you have them long term. So maybe Yoda, good question. And then Tesla as well. That's going to be interesting to see how the volatility kicks in there. And Disney, I missed the AMD Matt covered rip. Let's see, Disney. Okay, let me check out Disney. Yeah, Disney, I didn't even notice about that. I didn't even see it for the past week. That's an insane. Disney had a nice rip last week. So it is over, you know, that level that really gapped down that 1 week during the crash, right? And I don't know what to say. It's in no man's land right now. That's going to be interesting to see how this week plays out with it. I can't really say much on that. That's just no man's land to me. Sorry, Frank. John, you got anything on Disney?
Yeah, actually, you know what? I'll share my screen. I think I talked to Frank about this the other day too. But Disney does look pretty good. It is kind of in no man's land, like you said, but it's breaking out of a longer term downtrend pattern. See if I can find Disney on here. And it still hasn't fully filled that gap either. So Disney was right here the whole time. This can load. But I think the gap was at, 138. I'm trying to turn these view ops off for a sec. So Disney was it formed this downtrend right here, right? And it was struggling around the 131, 132 area for the better part of the last week or two. And then finally this past week, we broke right through it, but we never really fully filled that gap right up to 138.58. So I think we could still try to keep an eye on that. I would say look to see if Disney can hold above 134.76. Look to see if we can hold above that level. And then the next time we start to see a move through 136 again, with this 136.36 level, I think we could probably catch a move up to go fill that gap. Especially now with the NBA restarting again, resuming the playoffs. That's another thing that's going to keep this name running. So I would keep an eye on those two levels. But other than that, I think this gap right here at 138.58, if we do end up filling it, I think that can serve as pretty hard resistance. So I would try to catch the move through 136. I would probably wait until that level, unless you want to see, if we have some inside day candles that kind of consolidate above this level here, you might be able to play it that way as well. So those are two ideas. Other than that, I wouldn't look to go, I definitely wouldn't look to go short on Disney. I would definitely be looking to go long with those two scenarios. But yeah, that's really all I have for Disney. But it does look good. It was a good play pointed out by one of our members in the chat. That was very good, Frank. Nice call on this.
Yeah, good job, Frank. So I think I just want to finish it off on one last one would be space, because I know we're still in space, right? So space this week, we're in those for the nice short squeeze up and holding strong, right? Space finished off pretty strong in the end of the week. Seeing if we can get a continuation into this week with some volume. I know we did get a little bit of volume on Friday, but seeing if we can get some volume up to kick us up to 1832, just get a nice algo-based level there. And then see if we can just pump a little bit. I did want to see if we could roll some contracts just to give us a little bit more time and, possibly write out some profits if we do get a nice push, because space hasn't had any real push in the past couple weeks after their earnings and the report from their SpaceX launch. So just want to see and hold that. And RSI, MACD holding well. We're just, we just need to hold it for a little bit longer. I might average down tomorrow. I'm in those 6 contracts and we'll see how that plays out. Other than that, just keep asking questions, because that's just going to be something I'll keep an eye on throughout the week. And I see 2 more chats in here. Thanks, boys. See you in the morning. Yep. See you in the morning, Jacob. And I'm going to cut off there, guys. Thank you for joining. Don't forget, we trade every day, 5 days a week. Market resources, always here. Traders always looking for the plays. 30 minutes to close. John is always in live meetings. He's doing that 30 minutes to close.
Yes, sir.
If you want to join and catch these plays on the spot, click the link in the description. Before you go, just know AMD, YETI, Citigroup, DOCU, Zoom, Spot, FSLY, PTON, JPM, Disney, and SPCE for space. Other than that, catch you guys in the next video. Thank you for joining the live stream here on Zoom, even though we had problems. Thank you, John, for joining in this Sunday first watch list.
Of course. Thank you guys for joining in.